Come on up. How we doing, guys?
Good, how are you?
Well, that was easy.
What could you tell guys, being here before, what could you tell them about what kind of atmosphere to expect, even though basketball, football are different animals?
Well, I've been here for football before. I called a couple of games on Thursday night here, and the one thing that blew me away was the tailgate scene even on a Thursday night. Now, I can only imagine, now that was Texas, but I can only imagine what it will be like for the Cyhawk game and on a Saturday. And hopefully they'll come out and get started nice and early with us here, because I'd like to see a scene similar to what we had at Washington State last year, where we had, I don't know what it was, probably exaggerating, but Derek, how many people we have at Washington State? 30,000, something like that? 30, 35,000 people. And we'd love to see something like that here. So it would be fun. I'm sorry I ruined your soundbite by asking our PR guy how to do that.
Well, what's the added appeal to going to a place that you haven't been before?
The biggest thing for me is that they're not used to having us. I mean, we're always welcomed and treated very well at places that become regular stops. The Ohio States, Alabama's, Michigan's, places that we're treated great. But the fans are very used to it, and it's so it's not different for them. I think the thing that always strikes me about going to a new place is that fans are really proud of their program, their rivalry, their school, and they want to showcase that. I don't think this is like, them coming out just to see us. They're coming out to use our show, which I hope they enjoy and value, as a way to show the pride that they have in their school and their program. So I think when they get the opportunity to do that for the first time, or for the first time in a long time in some cases, you can really get a lot of energy. Even Texas, a place you would think that we've been a lot, we hadn't been there in 10 years. And last Saturday, even in 100-degree weather, the energy was off the charts, early in the morning. So I think some of the novelty of it and being able to showcase that pride makes a really good setting for our show.
What about this rivalry intrigues you the most?
I think anything that has the connotation that one side feels as if they lose, they'll never hear the end of it, and that same side also feels like if they win, they don't get enough credit for it. It creates an intensity in the rivalry, and historically, that school has been Iowa. That sort of feels like, okay, we're playing them. If we can just get through this game, we won't have to hear about it for the rest of the year. I think that's changing a little bit with the job that Matt has done, and it's more on an even keel. But I like the fact that they play early. I like the fact that hopefully they will continue to play. Something we're going to talk about on the show Saturday morning is that there are a lot of rivalry games that have gone by the boards. Pitt and Penn State are playing for the 100th time tomorrow, and there are no games in the foreseeable future. And candidly, though they're kind of giving lip service to it, Penn State doesn't seem too interested in playing. It's not that they're afraid of them, they just don't see what they get out of it. I would say that rivalries like this are sort of the lifeblood of the sport. You don't get the same thing in any other sport. Even with all due respect to maybe a single meeting in basketball, there are just so many games. And with college football being a once a week, almost a communal type feel, a building to a singular day, it's really tough to match it. And I think the way that there's pride in this state and programs, and the historic animosity between the two, way back in the day, it gives it a lot of texture and a lot of fun.
Impression of Ames, this campus we're on? It's
beautiful. I mean, it's a great place. I think there's a lot of energy here. We had a big tray of meat last night at Hickory Park, so that was good. Lots and lots of meat. I'd eaten there before. I'd forgotten about the portions. The portions may mean that they need to send one of those John Deere gators to roll you out after it's over. So.
Any insight on who the guest picker is going to be from here?
We are finalizing that. I'm not at liberty to discuss that at this point in the day, but we are bringing a celebrity to Ames. That's the goal. So it should be well received and be a lot of fun.
When you dug into this Hawkeyes team, kind of breaking it down, looking at it, what are the biggest things that jump out to you so far?
Defensive line, I think is a big thing. Veteran quarterback, and just some of the adjustments. I was talking to some people at Iowa this week about just from game 1 to game 2, some of the different things they're doing with Epinesa to make sure that he's able to use his skills as a pass rusher, and he's not constantly dealing with either double teams or chips or running back help. Maybe create a little confusion and let him do what he does best. I think their defense is, it hasn't been tested like it's going to be tomorrow because Brock Purdy's legit. But I think Iowa's got a really, really strong defense, one that can lead them to a division championship in the Big Ten West, certainly at the very least, be a huge challenge to Wisconsin in that division. And, and then offensively, when you've got a guy like Nate that I believe might have come in the same recruiting class as Niall Kennick, that when you've got, he's played a lot of football, and I think that's a real positive for them.
What is it about Brock Purdy that has you so impressed by him?
He's got a little bit of an it factor to him. I think the quintessential Brock Purdy play. I mean, he's accurate with the football, and he can run. And from what I understand this week, some of the people around here would like for him to run some more. But I mean, he hit 75% of his passes. But that fumble was lying there on the ground. The game was lying on the ground. And he had no business being the one to get the ball, but he did. And I think it's sort of the intangible factor, the way he just elevated the offense when he came in last year, and I don't believe he's lost a start here. Hasn't played in this rivalry yet, but I believe he's perfect at home, and I look forward to seeing him play. I think he's just got a little bit of swagger, a little bit of it to him, in addition to being a really good athlete and really accurate with the football.
Was that one of the games you were watching live when that play unfolded?
Yes. Yeah. We watch just about everything, and I was watching. I saw the ball on the ground, and I thought, well, I guess we're not going to Ames. And then, and then he got it back, and they won the football game.
On the game day bus watching it?
I actually was. I was in a restaurant in Fort Worth with my wife and son, and there were a bunch of games on, and that was the one I was kind of glued to.
Even back then, game day was on your radar as a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of games on the radar, and I'm not going to be disingenuous. Certainly, Maryland's evisceration of Syracuse last week played a big factor in us winding up here. But it was something that we had been talking about. In the preseason, we never make final decisions, but you look ahead and you look at games on that particular week, and it pretty much gotten down to, barring catastrophic circumstances, it looked like an either or. One of those two places were the top two candidates. So I will admit, you do this for a while and you start looking at games through that prism. And as the ball was lying there, I was like, well, I guess we're not going to Ames this year. and then he got it, and here we are. So we're excited to be here.
What's it like? What's it like when you go to a new place? Reaction to Corso, and I guess especially if it is an Iowa State, headgear he puts on the ground.
Yeah, I don't know what else he's going to do with the headgear, but look, he's a college football treasure. He's an icon. The sport has always been popular, but he hit on something with the headgear pick, and he has a very natural connection with people and with the audience that is not contrived in the least. He understands the value of entertaining while informing as well, and the headgear. I feel like you can't really start a college football Saturday until LC puts on headgear, and to have a moment like that, to be part of your show, something that I don't know that we've seen in sports television, and I'm not sure anything will ever quite match up to it. It's we're doing the CFB 150 project. That's an iconic piece of college football history now. It's just the whole headgear thing that Lee's done for a number of years.
Sports betting was just recently legalized here in Iowa, and obviously with this being such a huge game, thoughts on what it's like for people tuning in to watch the show and then the game with more on the line than just their fan pride?
Now I know why the Bear Chris Felica is so happy to be here. Right? Sports gambling legal in Iowa. It's always been around. People have always, whether it was way back in the day, my dad, who was a teetotaling, church-going man, would still come home with those little number squares from time to time from his job as a machinist. People like having a little something extra to root for. That doesn't mean that you have to, compromise your morals or go a little farther than you should in gambling or anything like that. But I think that some of it just gives people a little more reason to watch. And I think the most fascinating thing to me, back when we had to be a little more veiled in what we talked about as it pertains to gambling, when I was in college football studio for 16, 17 years, something like that. And when a game would wind up right on the number, right on the spread, I would just randomly, final score, Iowa State, 45, Texas 38. How do they know? If they hit right on the number, you go, how do they know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I think people enjoy it, gives them something to root for if the game gets out of hand too. So, as long as, like everything else in life, all things in moderation and all things within the law and all of that kind of thing, I think it's relatively harmless. Obviously, all thinking people understand the nefarious side of it and how you have to guard against that and letting it, the scandals we've had in college athletics over the years, how you have to protect the integrity of the sport and the game and the institutions from things like that. But in terms of, just the fans, having a little extra, I think for the most part, when done wisely and in moderation, people enjoy it.
Last one coming up. Any more?